we were at the Corinthian and I had on a black top and sweater and this big white collar, which I thought it was a bee's knees in. And I thought this chap was coming over to ask me to dance. And instead of asking me to dance, he bent down and he says, I thought the Mayflower had sailed.
Yeah. We had many memories of our childhood, and just first to say that I'm very proud of Mummy and Daddy, your grandparents,
Yes.
because they were they're saints today,
Yes.
because of what they did for us, brought us up so well, very respectful in every way.
Yes.
And my school days, I must say that I didn't study. I was very lazy, and my master did say that I was had the brains but was far too damned lazy to use them.
Yes.
So I was more or less interested in sports, running around these fields and going to the sports and having a great time, And so anyway, between us then, we sort of maybe almost grew apart. Although I do remember the great times Treasa and I had when we went on our holiday. I'd come home from England, from Nottingham where I was, and she bought her Volkswagen, and we used to throw things just into the back of the car and off and sailed, and we never once rang anyone up to prepare a room for us. In other words, we just took potluck and talk. And then she used to say to me, "You're better looking than me. You go in now," or we would go into this bar. In those days, no ladies were, in the bars. And then, but we were terrified. We'd buy 20 cigarettes, and I think we smoked 2, because it gave us this courage to go up to ask for a drink. It was very, very, it was. So those were memorable days. We went to Godore, we went all around. We used to go right up into the what's the dunes it was, where you sat in the sand. And Treasa was the one for always knitting or crocheting, and maybe I lay just in the sun, and then we would look forward to coming down to I see this big hotel on the beach where we had our nice dinner and everything.
Treasa Rawson.
Yeah.
The Treasa Rawson Hotel.
We loved to, what was I going to say too? We loved the scenery was just gorgeous. And we would, I'm just trying to, now I've lost my trend of thought. But and I would be home and go back feeling very refreshed after a holiday in Ireland. But I lived in Nottingham. I went to Nottingham I went to Devon first because your Aunt Katie
was there.
And she was having the one and only child, Felicity.
What age were you then?
I was probably going up on 26 years old. Yes, I was on my 26th year when I left home, and went with your grandmother. We went down there, and I intended to come back if I was working in Little Woods in Derry, and then I wanted to transfer it, if I could, to stay there while the baby and where Katie was more or less recuperating from a very, very difficult birth. But I couldn't get any work because it was too early in the year, so my brother-in-law went and found me a job at what you call the Standard Telephone Cables, which is a Canadian company, and so I was very lonely. I wasn't happy, but and Treasa came to paint and to take Mommy back, and so I thought I wanted to run home again, but I thought I'll stay, and I'll try and stay for 1 year, and that I did, and I came home again, and then. On the December of 1959, I came to Nottingham, and my best friend in painting had gone to Torbay Hospital to get an interview for me, and I said no, I would never work at a hospital. But strangely enough, on the 1st of January 1960, I started at the General Hospital in Nottingham, and I stayed there for almost 25 years. And then afterwards,
about Granny and Grandin, your childhood and all the rest, because I'm going to concentrate on your solely.
And
two of these talk about growing up.
Growing up. Yeah, well, I think as regards them growing up and us growing up in Ballyarnett, from a very large family. We were very privileged because of her having her own land, and it's very rural besides today, Yeah. So I think And you know, I think looking back to when I think of all of us, how dedicated they were with their faith and getting us all so beautifully dressed for both our First Communion and Confirmation, you know, and walk to our church through to Pennyburn every Sunday and march down to confession, and we were brought up very well, and nothing was questioned. Anything that came from Rome had to be obeyed. Yeah.
What did Granda do?
Well, Granda was a labourer, he worked for stewards, didn't he? For a long
farm. I was a storekeeper in
stewards then, and then he would be.
And then we had the land here, bit of land here, and we had a few cows.
Yeah, that's right. And his hobby was, when he came home from work, he went straight to, because we had all our home-grown vegetables and potatoes and everything. I remember so well how they even when we were on our way to school in the winter's day, we didn't, our little boots that we went into, and Mummy would get the coals, cinders, and put them through them to heat up our shoes to go to school. Yes, we did. So they were very dedicated, and I remember how proud we were in our confirmation, you know, how, and I remember Katie was, we were both of us confirmed in one day.
That's
because
right.
Bishop O'Kane died, and we had to wait another year. So she and I were at the cathedral, and I remember crying to Mummy, saying that she spoiled the day for me because I wasn't getting that. I should have had that money put into my silk bag that she had on her bag. So we remember that so well, you know. Yeah.
What about Granny work?
And Granny? No, Granny didn't. She worked at her home with all so many family, you know. No, I always, when she was at the washboard, sitting or standing outside.
Yes.
And all I could hear was her.
Granny was at the washboard.
And if things go wrong, dear, and fate is unkind, look over your shoulder, I am walking behind. She would always say that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So she was, and then I would have an audience because I'd be outside washing at night time, and Daddy would be, I didn't know he was in the garden, but I was washing and it was getting quite dark, and suddenly I heard this terrible thing hit the bath, you know. I said, there's another one. And he appeared then, he was in the garden firing the stones at me when I was doing when I was washing at night time, you know. Yeah. But we used to have, it was great. Good memories, because people used to come, you see, it was so very romantic in a way, because we had the hunt, you see, that and that would come up to McCorkle's there, you know, that house has 32 rooms in it, and we would know when there was going to be a banquet there, because all the carpets were out, you know, we thought of the carpet baggers, you know, and they would have a big celebration there, and then after that was all over, we used to go up behind that house. Now, even in spring, now we've gathered the primroses and the daffodils that grew wide there, and then they would have His Majesty's the boxes for the cigarettes. So we took them, and they were so beautiful for our
pencils and pens.
Pencils and pens for school. Yeah, and when we put it, all our wallpaper was used to back our books. Our books. Yeah. And I have to say, on one occasion, I'm absolutely surprised that I'm still alive, because on this occasion, school was over and I was putting all my books away in the chest of drawers, and I piled them all in the last drawer at the bottom. On the top was this lovely Infant of Prague. Now, that Infant of Prague was brought by a girlfriend of Charles.
Charles Mary FVT.
From Prague itself. And it was under this glass shield, and it was all this lovely vases.
Beaded stuff.
Yeah, and you know that lovely red glass, you know, like a
dome. Like a dome.
Well, the dome was, but then there was candles. And everything come toppling down on my head, and it was absolutely sitting there with everything in smithereens. I don't think the infant got broken.
No.
It was just the shield.
But the head, somebody broke the head off, but we stuck it on again.
Yeah. So that was an occasion, really.
What about you, Aunt Treasa? Any memorable story?
Yeah.
Trying to think. I just can't think offhand of anything apart from the
Mommy
Mayflower.
always
We
says-
can tell about she was talking about the Mayflower having sailed, and we were always, Katie and I used to borrow her clothes because
Oh,
she'd started work and we weren't working, and she had
Yes.
these lovely fully fashioned sweaters and nice dresses, and she had this lovely strawberry coloured dress, and I borrowed it to go to the dance, and I went into the Corinthian, and this fellow took me out in the dance, and the first thing he says, "What are you doing here in your sister's dress?" I knew that was funny. Yeah.
How did he know?
Because he had been dancing with me. He thought he was taking me out to dance from behind.
Yeah.
And I discovered it was Mary. that was funny.
Mommy always says how good you were to Aunt Treasa. You were always taking care of her and doing things.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
When she was young.
Totally spoiled,
Yes.
and Katie spoiled her no end because
Yes.
she just didn't look like anyone in the family.
Hmm.
She was blonde, very blonde,
Yes.
with blue eyes.
Yes.
And we had a neighbour, Mrs. Dinsmore, that lived in Sandbank
right,
Cottages, and she would come down here to this school, the Protestant school, Ballyaron School, and she would have to walk right around the course, which was very muddy. So Mummy would say, "Come on, take an earcut, come through the street here and go down, you know." And then Mrs. Dinsmore didn't have any children, and she was so serious that she'd like to adopt Veronica. She wanted to take Veronica. We see her in these leggings, you know, and
Yes.
a coat to match.
Yes.
And Katie used to buy her all these clothes, you know. Yeah, it was very. And then Mummy was. Your grandmother would say, "My God, is she serious that I'm going to give Veronica away?" So yeah, that was one. So yeah.
What, Aunt Treasa, I'm still waiting to hear something from
Yeah,
you.
come on now.
I'm
you
just
think-
trying to think way back, isn't it? My memory is absolutely hopeless. I
You're
would
great
need to-
now. You've
I
always
need to
been
be
great at
thinking-
remembering
Yeah,
but
specific
just-
things if
Yeah.
you know.
She could tell a naughty story if she liked.
Give us
Yeah.
that.
No, I
about-
wouldn't do that.
No, it wouldn't be that. Well, it wasn't all. I think it's very clever, actually, this one. But
About that one about
the Braille, the girl that, yeah. Well, if you don't want to tell
What
it,
was
it might
that?
spoil it.
It won't spoil it.
On
Love
the
it.
barmaid's chest from east to west was
Into-
tattooed the price of ale, and on her behind, for the sake of the blind, was the same information in Braille.
Yeah, that's right.
Very naughty.
No, but have you any stories that you remember about your childhood or about?
Well, the only thing is,
Anything.
about
Granny and
same
Grandma
at
or
the
anything?
Corinthian, and this boy took me out to dance, and he kept holding me up close, and I kept pushing away, and he stopped in the middle of the dance, and he says, "Tell me, do you wear a flannelette nightie?"
Yeah, well, that was the way we used to
What was
say.
that?
Yeah.
What was that mean? What did that mean?
Well,
Oh,
that I
meaning
was
that
so
she was sort of,
innocent and,
yeah, and her,
Aye,
and
old-fashioned, you know.
old-fashioned in her thinking, you
Aye,
know.
flannelette
It's
nightie.
well,
Aye.
Rather, I wouldn't have known what that meant at all.
No. Aye, well, he used kept.
Because I'd
hold
still
me
wear
cheek to
flannelette
cheek.
nighties
Yeah,
if
there
you
you
were.
are.
No, we used to
Aye.
always say if they were dancing too close, would you mind leaving room for my
From a
guardian
guardian
angel?
angel? Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good, yeah. So I don't know. There must be lots of stories of yourself that you could remember things that happened.
Well, I can't remember like too far back. Or not anything funny, you know.
No, but
that I can
No, even
recall.
just
Doesn't have
anything
to be
memorable,
funny,
special.
Memories.
yeah,
Or granny or grand, anything.
yeah.
Anything
We used to
else
say,
special?
well, the two of us, Jan, we stayed for a while in Queen Street with
Gertie Rooney.
Gertie Rooney,
Yes.
and then and Pat, you know,
Mm.
and the two of us in the winter night, you know, we got the hot water bottle,
No,
and wasn't it? And he says, "Why don't you two find yourself a man or something?" And Treasa says, "Well, I feel much safer with my hot water bottle." But she said, I know we were down once in, I don't know if it was Gildor or anywhere, anyway, we were sleeping
Aye.
together in this bed, and she says, "There's something missing about this bed," and I says, "Yes, a man."
Just the two of yous.
Just the two of yous, yeah. No, Mommy said we had better fun than the, although she came out to Vancouver 4 times, you know.
From she was her
Yes.
70s.
She came out, we went out in 1975, and then she went out in 78 for Patrick and Rita's 25th anniversary. And then she came 78, and then in 83 we went out. That was the year I got engaged, and then she came out in 1985 again. Yes,
Imagine
4
at
times
that
to
time,
Canada. Yeah.
in her 70s.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
No, she wasn't about afraid of flying or anything.
No, she just. I think as long as she had somebody
Somebody
by
with her, or
side,
somebody,
yeah,
or meeting her, or
yeah.
whatever.
Then Davina, she also when we were out in 78, and that was the year I had a hysterectomy and had to go. I was off work for over 4 months, and when I went out there, then we went down this day to Woodward's in Vancouver, where Mommy, your grandmother, would be sick of seeing Rita not having any tea cosy. She wouldn't have a tea cosy.
That's right.
And so she said, I'm going down now and I'm going to buy one downtown. So my niece, Maureen, was with her. And she entered this escalator. Meanwhile, Patrick and myself were waiting for them, and we were looking at these 2, husband and wife, and they were sitting back to back in these chairs, and a cat sitting underneath the chair, and it says, "We haven't had a cross word in years," it said. We were just laughing, and suddenly this person, did you ever see the movie, one that jumped over the cuckoo's nest? The big guy that picked up a freezer, and he was something like that. Yeah, he was coming down the escalator, and he said, "Are you Mr. O'Doherty?" And our hearts just dropped. And Mammy and Maureen were going on the escalator, and Mammy was just pulled her arm from Maureen's for her to link on her, and she fell on the escalator, and she fractured her pelvis. Yeah, she wasn't displaced, was just cracked, but she was in hospital, And there, I have to tell you then that story, a funny story there, is she would be coming down each day to this little alcove where they would be serving tea and coffee or a little snack, for the patients. And this fellow took a shine to her, and he'd be there at the same time to see your grandmother. And then she'd say to me, "May, don't dare say anything to Daddy now when you get home about this man."
Now, Veronica, Mommy would have a wide fear of escalators. I wonder, is that why? Because of Granny?
Yeah.
Could well be.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened, Davina? It was a miracle, because there were 2 children that stopped the escalator, and they ran off. Nobody got to know who they were because they were frightened. But she would have been she would have been killed
if they didn't stop.
Yeah, she would have been seriously ill because they stopped it. You see, at the top. Yeah.
Very good.
So